Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we proudly present our spectacular show of podcast magic and imagination full of Disney wonder, news, and pop culture. It's the Main Street Electrical Podcast with Jenn Dave and David Dollar.
Hey, Jen.
Hey, Dave.
It's the Main Street Electrical Podcast.
Yes.
Welcome to the Main Street Electrical Podcast. I'm sitting here in the hot, sweltering sun. Well, not hot, sweltering sun. I'm sitting in my house of Birmingham, Alabama. Our power bill is sky high because my wife is now gone for like 2 weeks. And of course, when she leaves, don't tell her, I pot the air down to like 68 degrees because she's like, it should be on 72. We got to, whatever. And I'm like, our power bill came in. I'm paying for this, but I don't care. I'm like, we're too successful in our careers for me to be sweating in my own darn house. It's not so, Jen, of course, I'm going to ask you how you did see this week, but I'm assuming it's going to have something to do with the fact that right now, as this episode drops, you're leaving the country.
Literally. I'm leaving the country to go to, I start by landing in London, and then I will be joining a Disney cruise in Southampton, which is the port basically in London.
Right.
And then we're hitting up France, Iceland, Norway, and ending in ending in Copenhagen, Denmark. I'm so excited for this cruise. So that
is really cool. I'm excited for you on this cruise. I think it's gonna be great. You get to go on this. Of course, we told the story before. You didn't realize that our good friend Kyla is going on the same cruise, and of course, one of the agents, Katie, is going on the cruise. She's like a European traveler.
She's like well traveled in Europe.
And then of course, Marcy loves me. Marcy, your boss, my grand boss, and she works. She's kind of our Disney connection. She is going on the cruise as well, so she will all be there. All the families will all be there, and you guys will be having a blast.
Yeah.
Well, I'm over at our local Splash Adventure and doing all that. So so Disney for me, how I Disney this week, and let me just say that I was thinking about a few things here and there, and next week we were going to be talking to our good friends Emily and Jessica, who just went to Disneyland, and so I'll be sharing some 5K stories on there, how I got my medal this week finally. But today I'm sitting here and I'm working, and as I've mentioned before, my wife is gone. I'm actually on day 3 or 4, whatever, of she's gone 15 to 16 days. So it's me and the kid, and we're fine. We're good. We're good like that. However, I've got to work. I've got to do some stuff. So he's trying to find things to do. And he walks over and he's like, build track. And he wants me to help build his monorail track. And I'm like, Campbell, can you build your track? And you kind of go through this whole thing of like, you got to work. You got things to do. But at the same time, you don't want to look at your kid and be like, do your own thing. Because you're thinking ahead going, is he going to look back later and be like, I wish you just paid more attention to me? Which we're together all the time. But he grabbed my hand and he looks at me and he said, build monorail track together. And I was like, you want to build it together? He goes, yes. Build monorail track together. Which he's never said build together. Like you and me, let's build it together. And I'm like, give me 2 minutes. I'm typing this email out. So this cruise on this date leaves on this date. Here's the price for your concierge or whatever. All right. So I take 20 minutes. We go build this track in the middle of our floor with a monorail. It's all curved and stuff because it's we've got 2 sets, so we can do all kinds of curved things.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And it's the 50th monorail. So he was playing with it for like 30 minutes, and then he was like, okay, I'm distracted. I will do something else now. But it was the greatest little thing.
Oh, I love it.
Let's build it together. I love it. So we're going to hop right into the episode here because we got a good 45 minutes conversation coming up. This is the second part of our chat with former Imagineer McNair Wilson. If you enjoyed last week's episode, you're going to love what he has to say here. We talked about the Adventurers Club last week. This week, we talk about curiosity. I jump right into asking the question, talk about curiosity. It's one of the themes in his book, his whole thing. And being in the same room with the guy is very interesting because you look over and he's listening, but he's a doodler. And you'll look over and on napkins, on paper, whatever, he will have these really just fun drawings of everything from Disney attractions to people, to he's drawing the guy on stage, to he's drawing an animal or a fruit or just something. He's just doodling and drawing. So his creative brain is always working. And so he talks about that. And he also talks about his new books coming up. And he retells the story of doing the Tower of Terror, which if you've never heard it, it's fascinating. Mel Brooks, the famous producer and director, is involved in the story. He talks about having dinner with Marty S, which blows my mind.
Right.
he talks about what the Tower of Terror was supposed to be, what was it intended to be, and now what it is, what it's become. So it's a great conversation there. Of course, make sure we'll do all the contact information in just a few minutes. But Jenn, let's talk to McNair real quick. Let's go back and talk to McNair. So one of the things too that I remember, and this is really big in your book, and I've got Hatch right here in front of me because it's a great little book. The first book of your 7-book trilogy. One of the things you talk a lot about in the book, and I think you mentioned this on VIP tour, is curiosity, which is a fun word. And I think it's something that, because we get caught up in dreams and magic and, imagination, which is great. But I think curiosity is also something, kind of a concept that we forget about. Why? And this is such a broad question, but in terms of Disney or whatever, in the creative process, why is curiosity so important? Why was it so important to Walt? Why is it so important now?
Curiosity is to the human experience what a spark plug is to the internal combustion engine. Without it, there's nothing. My family has a long history of working with special needs people, especially people who, and my brother who did this for 30 years has told me this is the phrase you use, were born with a diagnosis of mental retardation. I have, over the years of doing street theater, many, many times selected in our audience participation shows, my company, SAC Theater, SAK. When you go to Disney World, go downtown to the SAC Comedy Lab, SAK. And it doesn't mean anything. It's just our way of spelling a sack full of costumes and props. and I had many times in doing audience participation at Italy and the United Kingdom, we were hired for 3 months to do 10 shows a day. Within a week, they asked us, do you have more people? They said, we do 30 Renaissance festivals a year. We have 60 people. By Thanksgiving of that first year, added a troupe to the United Kingdom. Went to 12 shows a day in each. By the summer of 85, we had 3 shows also in Future World. We were doing 85 shows a day. From 10 shows a day for 3 months, we stayed 7 years at 41,000 street theater shows.
Oh my!
That's how popular it was. When I was testing Streetmosphere, the Hollywood Boulevard characters, and line entertainment, one of the things I did was the autograph hound, a jacket with buttons from all the Disney movies. I was on Main USA Disneyland. That character doesn't fit there at all. But guests would come, and I could look at a family and see who's the live wire. It's going to be the younger kid, the grandmom, maybe the dad if he's got a Hawaiian shirt and plaid pants. The dad. And I'd look to him and I'd say, excuse me, sir, can I have your autograph? I've seen all your movies. And they kind of went. So this family was coming down and I was being taped. This is on videotape somewhere. I should get it somewhere in the archives of Imagineering. And there's this family, and there's about 8-9-year-old kid. And he looks at me because I saw he had an autograph book. And he looks at his mom and says, Mom, she said, go ahead, David, sign his book. So he signs it very carefully, David. And she said, would you sign? I said, well, I know, okay. And they start to leave. They get a half a block down Main Street. And the mom doubles back, tears flowing down her face, says, thank you for using my son in your show. He gets ignored all day. Well, he was Down syndrome. That scared me a bit. That just tells me that's the guy.
Oh my gosh.
Pick him, he will play along. And every time I've done that,
I love it.
Renaissance Festival, it worked. Disney would have you not do that. Just be careful.
Right.
Okay, I'll be careful. Here's what the careful for me on that day was, to pick the right person. And we were testing that. We got all done, and on the video, the security guy comes up to me and waits till the family's gone and says, who are you? And I had my name tag hidden amongst all. Said, McNair Wilson, I stayed in character. And he said, oh, okay, fine. When they showed it at Imagineering, at a gathering of Imagineers, the title was McNair busted by Disneyland security in front of 40,000 guests. And as the guy says, oh, okay, and he starts to leave, I said, wait a minute, I didn't get your autograph. And I stayed in character the whole time. When we opened Disney MGM Studios during the preview, the head of all of Disney World retail in-park stores came to me one day and says, hey, I can't talk to your people. I said, I have people? He said, your little people. I said, they all speak English. There's only one Canadian, all the rest of them are Americans. He said, well, yeah, but they're always doing their thing. I said, what? Wearing a costume and staying in character on set? Imagine that. one of the 5 rules of the theater is you stay in character.
Yeah.
A light drops, as has happened to me on stage and plays, and you stay in character while somebody comes and gets it. You say, "Oh, wow, let me just move this," you know. I did Hoop de Doo Revue for 5 years, and things would happen that weren't in the show, and but you stayed in character all the time.
Yeah.
We got a note one night at Epcot, or at Hoop de Doo, and there are 2 worlds at Pioneer Hall. There's food service and entertainment, and they work together, but they don't tell each other what to do.
Right.
We had a note one night on the bulletin board from the manager of the food service: VIPs, second show, 7:30, do a good show. Really? So I grabbed the note, I go over to the kitchen, I find this lady, and I said, let me get this straight. VIPs at 7:30, do a good show? She says, yeah. I said, but at 5 and 10, we can do our normal pile of crap. Is that what you're telling me? No. I said, you said do a good show at 7:30. What would you like us to do at 5 and 10? Well, I'm just saying. I said, ma'am, I know you're trying, and I know it's VIPs, and I don't care who they are. So we go out to do the show, and they're in the middle of the room in this huge table are 6 kids and their dads, George Lucas and Steven Spielberg. No mom.
That's awesome.
Now, my rule with families is I ignore the adults and play with the kids.
Absolutely.
VIPs or not. So all night I'm doing this, and I've done this with all kinds of celebrities, because they all come. If Michael Jackson was at Disney World for a week, he'd come to Pioneer Hall at least twice. Anyway, so I'm going over and I'm doing all these different things with the kids, and I, push, look, excuse me, sir. Boom. We get a note. In a week of doing everything, this was a highlight. Our kids wanted to know if we could come back. Thanks for not ignoring us. They get ignored because they're famous. They get connected.
Yeah.
Get all those different things. So I took that note and I showed it to the lady. I said, this is what happens when you treat the VIPs. I have celebrity friends. They want to be treated like everybody else.
Right.
Treat them like everybody else. And we would do that when we were doing street theater. Saw a guy in the audience at UK one day, and I'm out ready to pick another character for Romeo and Juliet. And I went up next to this guy, he's got a hat on. He said, "You're going to pick me?" I said, "No, just wanted to say hi." He said, "Thanks." I said, "No, I wouldn't pick you. Don't worry." Because the rule is we don't pick family members, friends, or celebrities.
Sure.
They'll try too hard, or they'll whatever. But I said, "Please come up afterwards." So afterwards, he walks over, and I said to my 2 friends, I said, "Guys, you know my friend Dustin Hoffman?" Well, he had just come off New York doing Death of a Salesman, and he was wearing a hat because he had shaved his head to play Willie Loman. He's playing a man 20 years older than himself. He said, "This is terrific. This is terrific. I can never do this. I don't know how you do that." I said, "Well, you'll be surprised. 90% what you just saw is on paper, even the ad libs." He said, it was just great. Thanks. And we didn't have a photographer there, to take a picture. But that happened all the time. And I forget your question.
Gosh.
About
curiosity.
Curiosity.
So here's the deal: is the curiosity is, what would happen if you picked a Down syndrome kid to be in a show? Magic would happen. You didn't pick him because he was Down syndrome or not. You picked him because he was the most lively guy in his family.
Right.
Sure.
I always say, let your curiosity get the best of you. You're running errands, and people would say, "What if we did this?" I said, "Let's try that." But what if it doesn't work? I said, "Then we'll never do it again."
We tried it, and now we know.
You know a way it doesn't work.
My brother, who is so quiet that he will not say the number of words all day today that I will say during our time together here. Great guy. We do a live FaceTime with each other every Sunday morning to catch up.
Love it.
Spent 30 years working with special needs people in the live-in institutional setting. And he's hilarious. You just have to listen for it. And he has a great curiosity. And he sends me every day. I could show you his text messages, photos he finds, and a poem he writes to go with it. He's never written poetry. He's writing it now. If you published it, you'd go, "Who is this? Who does this?" Let your curiosity get the best of you. Try it. What's the worst that can happen? In my corporate things, I have people stand up. Raise your right hand. and I have them promise to let the curiosity. And I said, what are you worried about? Raise your hand and say, repeat after me. They can't fire me. They sit down. Or I'll say, stay standing if you can think of anybody in your company who's been fired for being too creative. I've done hundreds of these keynotes now, maybe twice, and as they explained what happened, they didn't get fired, they got in trouble. They didn't get fired.
No.
You know, we're doing and this led to my leading the team that came up with what became the Power of Terror. Jeffrey Katzenberg asked me to put together the idea of maybe doing a major attraction based on the movie Airplane. Do you like Gladiator movies, son? That movie. Because they wanted the Zucker brothers to come and make movies at Disney.
Right.
Long story short, we came up with something. We put it on a big foam core, and we had 5 different projects doing presentations to Eisner, and we had to do 5 projects in an hour. We were last because we weren't had to do.
Yeah.
So we took this board and I put it in front of the door, leaving the building. It was a building that we owned, but weren't using for anything. And my boss, Marty, said, who are you wearing today? And I always had a sport coat on or bush jacket. And I always had some sort of lapel. I love all kinds of little lapel pins. And he said, oh, you're going to take that off because it was a cartoon character. No. So Eisner comes over and he says, we got 5 minutes. I said, give me 4. He said, wait a minute, who are we wearing today? I said, the best cartoon character ever. And he looks at it and goes, oh, one of the best. It was Bullwinkle.
Oh,
right.
I said, by far the best cartoon character ever, ever, ever. He said, I'm afraid to ask this. Is your second favorite a Disney character? I said, no, let's talk about the project. So we get done and he just kind of taps and he says, Bullwinkle, so great. I said, you know, Rocky and Bullwinkle are not on home video anywhere. This is the late 80s when that still wasn't.
yeah.
Right.
He says, nobody has it? And he said, no. I said, they're an independent company. They haven't made any new stuff in 20 years. He said, does Jeffrey know that? Meaning Katzenberg. I don't know what Jeffrey knows. I've been in meetings with him. I'm not sure he knows what. They call him.
Right.
Call him. Long story short, because I called Jeffrey and said, Michael and I were talking about Rocky and Bullwinkle. It's not on video. They called Jay Ward's wife. Jay Ward is dead, the creator, made her an offer, gave her $1 million to go through the library, and they released a 6-video kind of best of Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Oh
it was
my
at
God.
the time the best video collection of anything ever sold in home video.
Wow.
Well, they went back to her and she got smart now, and then she got a percentage of it. But that's
Smart.
because I wore the damn pin. I didn't wear it to accomplish anything other than that's the pin I put on that day.
Huh.
You know? And so your curiosity says, I'm going to try this.
Yeah.
So what's the worst that can happen? They can't fire you. And if they fire you, you didn't want to work there. You don't want to work on a company that fires you they fired you for what?
Right.
For thinking outside the box for creativity. Like
Right.
that's.
Or I love it.
Oh, look at that.
I'm having a t-shirt made that I'm going to wear at the next thing in Orlando when we go to whatever park. And it's Rocky Bullwinkle. And the caption is, my pronouns are moose and squirrel.
Now here's something we hope you really like.
I love
Yeah. I put that online and somebody says, there's always somebody that has to not take things seriously that should be taken seriously. And I thought, I'm not going to respond to that. And right away, about 8 other people on the website told her, back off.
It's a nod to Rocky and Bullwinkle. I loved that
I love
cartoon
it.
in the 80s.
Yeah.
I love that cartoon.
Oh yeah, like not a fan of the movie that came out several years later. I think
Well,
Robert De Niro was in it. Not so good, but
wasn't
the
as good.
cartoon.
You know,
The
at the time that I wore that lapel pin, Rocky and Bullwinkle, there was a 30-minute Rocky and Bullwinkle on Sunday mornings on the ABC affiliate in LA, Channel 7, 7:30 to 8 a.m. Sunday morning, 7:30 to 8 a.m. Who's up? A pastor on his way to work. That's it.
That's
Right.
it.
Right.
It was the number 2 show in that time slot. So they're up against
So good.
like Meet the Press and those kind of shows, right? And they were beating the pants off of them. And a show that in the 80s hadn't had a new cartoon made since the late 60s. And still.
Wow.
That's not even showing anywhere now, is it? I don't even think Rocky and Bullwinkle is on. I'd have to look.
I don't know. It's
don't
it's
think
on
it is.
Netflix or something.
Netflix, yeah. I mean, you can
Yeah.
find on streaming.
But I tell people go on eBay and get some Rocky and Bullwinkle stuff and watch it, and you'll be shocked.
No.
Because it's very grown-up humor, not R-rated, just sophisticated.
Right. Well, and I think that's always the reason in so many Disney attractions and 80s Disney movies, or even like 90s Disney movies, there were always some adult humor, not inappropriate adult humor, but something that like the adults were going to laugh at too, to go over the kids' heads.
I have used Rocky and Bullwinkle as kind of the modus operandi for how I write my books, I give my talk, how I create street theater, and that is make it silly enough for adults and sophisticated enough for children. Because people say, you really want to use that word there? And I'll say, that's not a word I looked up in the thesaurus. That is a word I use in conversation. It's a big word. It's a smart ass word, but I'm going to use that word. And then there are other places where I'll say, that's going to be a bump in the parking lot. I'll, dumb the word down.
Yeah.
But there's a wonderful talk that everybody's read. It's accredited to Nelson Mandela in his inaugural speech. He did not write it. He did not give it in his inaugural speech, but somehow it gets accredited to him. It's from a book by Marianne Williamson, who's running for president, who's kind of a age. The line in there that I love, she talks about being yourself and shooting for the highest you. Your playing small doesn't serve the world.
Oh, I like that.
Don't be less of who you are. Now, if that doesn't work for everybody, it doesn't work for everybody. I just did a big convention for Chick-fil-A for their nonprofit wing, Wind Shape, 400 people. You don't realize it. Behind Chick-fil-A, it's this organization that does these group homes and summer camps and so on. It's this huge multi-million-dollar organization that they just do.
Right.
And there were a couple of places where I said something that didn't get a particular big laugh, and I used my old line from street theater. Some jokes I just do for myself. There'll be more. Hang on.
I love that. And I just looked to Rocky and Bullwinkle. The original is not streaming anywhere. You can find it. The updated version from like 2018 or whatever, it's on Amazon Prime. So if you want to go new version, but nothing's like the original. I remember watching the original when I was a kid. Part of that, the Dudley Do Right and the Rocky and Bullwinkle and all of those, the fractured fairy tales and all those cartoons and stuff. I love it.
Fractured fairy tales.
Go to eBay and find some DVDs or something. You won't be sorry if you've never seen them. You'll love it. If you have seen them, you're going to glad you have them in your library.
Well, and it's funny, we talked about special needs earlier with Imagination and Curiosity, because that's my kid, of course. And he's getting to the age where I can slowly introduce him to things, to like cartoons and things like that we watch. I mean, Charlie Brown was recent, and he's into certain older Disney movies now. And Rocky and Bullwinkle is one of those on the list that we're going to get to where, maybe he'll like it, maybe he won't, but I want him to know that's Bullwinkle, that's Rocky, because this is important stuff. I don't care anything about the new stuff. We need the old stuff.
Curiosity. I'll say to a group that brings me in to work on a project, what are we trying to accomplish here? Who's the target audience? And so on and so on. And then I'll say, what would you like to do? If you didn't have to worry about whether or not clients would like it, if you didn't have to worry about the cost of doing it, if you could do it any way you wanted to, and so on, so on, so on. I mean, I've worked with at least 3 major, well-known national companies that wanted to do theme parks. And 1,000 reasons why we haven't done them yet. One of the first things I say, they say, we got a piece of land and we think we can do it. And they got 40 acres. That's not a parking lot. Hey, if you don't have 200 or 300 acres, don't call me.
Can't do that.
Or if you only got a couple hundred acres, let's do a really kick-butt thematic shopping center that has your presence there and other things. And I did that one time with a guy that made millions of dollars on oil. And in his town, they didn't have an interesting shopping center. So we built this highly themed, wonderful shopping center. And it was a big hit. Had a dry cleaner, had restaurants, had this and that. But you look at it and go, well, that looks like an old Western town. You think? So your curiosity then has to take you somewhere. Your imagination will create the answers to that curiosity. Your creativity will help your imagination refine what your imagination is coming up with, and you'll come up with all kinds of stuff. When we were going to, before Disney MGM Studios opened, we knew it was going to be too small. So we began, before it opened, to say expand it. The way it was laid out, we couldn't just add a land. We said, well, we could add a street. So perpendicular to Hollywood Boulevard, we said, we'll do Sunset Boulevard. Now, in Hollywood, Sunset and Hollywood are parallel. Nobody cares.
Right. And nobody knows that either, unless they live there. They don't know it.
Right.
I'll give you $100 for every guest that's gone to guest relations. Says, Sunset Boulevard and Hollywood Boulevard are not perpendicular. They're nobody said that. Nobody cares. I don't care, and I know. So when you add a new land, you need what Walt called a weenie, the iconic attraction.
Yes.
That says this is the land. Big Thunder Mountain, boom, frontier land.
Right.
Got it. There are very often mountains, but not always. So I was tasked. Eisner actually said to Marty, get McNair to get his airplane squad together. And I called them the Knuckleheads. And there were some of the greatest guys there. It was like the Kirk brothers, who went on to do Disney Seas Tokyo, which was based on Disney Seas Long Beach, which I led when we had the Spruce Goose and the Queen Mary. That's why there's a boat at Disney Seas Tokyo, because we had the Queen Mary. You know that every day in Disney Seas Tokyo, people are having meals in one of the restaurants on the boat, and they'll say to the waiter, my wife not to feel so good. The boat is rocking. The waiters are trained to say, I'll talk to the captain. We have some levelers, some things that we can do to take care of that. Everything, much better now. That boat is a building sitting on a concrete slab.
It was never moving.
That building doesn't move any more than the houses the three of us are sitting in right now.
Oh, that's funny.
It's perception.
It's imagination.
Oh my gosh.
I love it. I love it.
It must be wrong. So Michael said, have the team to get together, and he called and left me a message. He says, let me know when you're gonna have the first team meeting. I have a friend I want you to work with. Long story short, we're sitting in Marty Sklar's private conference room, which on a good day will hold a dozen people if you move the table aside. So we're sitting there, and I just found my notes in one of my old sketchbooks. I've got 150 or so sketchbooks. I have one with me every day. They all start out looking like the wisdom of Al Gore. And then I used to say John Kerry, and it didn't get as big a laugh, so I went back to Al Gore, because he's the world's perfect zero.
You used to say John Kerry before you said John Kerry. Got it.
Very good.
There you go.
So Michael Eisner, 6'3", walks in with his friend Mel Brooks. And we all agreed later that every day after that would never be more than the second best day of our lives, because we'd all shared oxygen in a pretty small room. In fact, probably a room smaller than my office. My office is my master bedroom. I use the not master bedroom as my bedroom, because what do? You sleep and you put your socks on.
Right.
Anyway, and we said, what are we doing? And I said, Mel, we always create a thing. We need to create an icon, a weenie. He said, what's the weenie? I said, Walt came home. I don't know if you and your guests know this, where the term comes from. Walt came home from work every day, and his dog would greet him at the door, all excited. He'd go to the fridge, get a hot dog out of the thing, and hold it to his side and shake it. And his dog would follow him into the bedroom, put on his work clothes, go outside to work on his train, and then he'd give the weenie to the dog. So it got kept the dog's attention. That's where the term comes from. It's that.
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
I did not know that either.
It's that some things are really that simple.
Right.
And here we go. That's it. That's it. It only needs to be true and make sense. In fact, it only needs to be true. Why did they close the Rangers Club? Because idiots were in charge of making the decision. It doesn't make sense, but it's true. So we said, Mel, we don't, at Disney MGM Studios, we don't make a ride experience of a movie story. As much as we would all love to do farting cowboys of the Great Plains, that's probably not going to be the ride we're going to do. And he laughed. He thought that was funny. I said, you're funny. When we were introducing each other, I said, this is Tim Kirk, so on, so on, name tags. And he comes over to me and says, I started by saying, what do we call you? Mr. Brooks is, call me Mel. And I said, guys, and I said, Mel. From then on, in any meeting where anybody said the name Mel, even if he wasn't there, he said, we need to ask Mel about such and such. Good to see you, Mel. And he'd come in the room and he says, well, I'm here. Who's here? He said, Mel.
Funnily enough, this is how Jen used to want to be called. When I met her, she was like, "You can call me Jen." She demanded all of us call her that, but eventually she got away from it. But,
I wanted you to sing it. I wanted like,
that sounds true, and it makes sense.
She wanted me to sing it until I sang it, and then she was like, "Okay, well, maybe let's rethink this.
Accurate.
Let's rethink this anyway."
So I said, Mel, what we'll probably do is rewatch all your movies to make sure we as a team have seen them. He said, you should watch them without me. We said, okay. So we did, spent a few days. We watched 2 a day for a week. And we're sitting one day watching Spaceballs, which was not out on home video yet. A friend of mine was one of the actors in it, Jim J. Bullock. He used to be
I know him. Hollywood Squares.
Yeah. He said it was his worst experience in Hollywood because
no.
he started filming before the script was done.
Which, if you've seen the movie, is on par for that movie.
Long story short, we said to Mel, I said, we think we will take one of your movies and let it be the inspiration, the muse, something in the vein of Blazing Saddles, a comedy Western, something or other. And we went through all those. Meanwhile, I was on a team that was designing a high-end hotel that was going to be the most expensive hotel on Disney World property that would be at the front entrance, just outside the front entrance of Disney MGM Studios. So as you approach the gate, it would sit there. California Art Deco theme. And we knew that we had an echelon of guests that were very, 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 top 1% of the top 1%. That if they checked into the Grand Floridian and they had the second best room in the place, and they found out the best room became available, they'd like that. Not to show off at all, that's just their lifestyle. So we said, let's build a hotel that's for those folks. They're there. Didn't have to make a big deal out of it. It would all be suites, be 24-hour valet. So you want fettuccine Alfredo with grilled chicken at 4 a.m, it'll be up in 20 minutes, or so on. So we're designing that, and I'm on that team. And we did a tour, an Art Deco tour of LA, and we're talking about what it would be. And it was only going to be, I don't remember, 150 rooms, 200 rooms, very, very, very expensive for that time and so on. And I said one day to Mel, I said, Mel, we like the idea of young Frankenstein as our muse, funny and scary.
Okay.
We don't do anything particularly scary at Disney MGM Studios right now. There's the Alien Room in the Great Movie Ride and so on and so on. There's Catastrophe Canyon and so on, but no full attraction. So we're building this hotel. I said, what if, and I was just riffing, I said, what if one end of this real hotel was the original old Hollywood Tower Hotel? So what would go on there? I don't know. We went around the table one sentence at a time and brainstormed. You go in, and there's luggage there that's unattended. There's a poker, a blackjack game that's unattended. Eventually it became mahjong, which made sense for that era, covered in dust, so on. You go and then somebody said, the elevator's broken. Somebody said, you go down into the steam room. And Mel says, what goes on in the steam room? And the whole team, as though we'd rehearsed it, said, steam. It was hilarious. He said, that's great. Oh, when we were doing names, and he said, call me Mel. And he said, what about you? What do I call you? Because I'd taken my jacket off with the name tag. I said, well, you're going to have to call me Mr. Wilson, which he did forever. Including 5 years after I left Imagineering, and I was sitting in a cafe late at night in New York City, where all the actors from all the Broadway shows go. And Nathan Lane came in with his retinue, and what's his name? Sarah Jessica Parker's
Matthew Broderick.
Matthew Broderick. They were both doing producers. It was in previews. I'd seen it 2 nights before, and I said, oh, please God, let Mel be in town and let him come here. Well, commotion at the door, and there was Mel and his group of friends.
Right.
We went and sat down, and at one point he came, and he was going to see them, and he came by me, and I stood up and I said, Mel. And he looked at me, he said, I know this face, and I know this face. And remember, he's like this.
Right.
And I said, imagine, he said, Mr. Wilson. He said, come and meet the little lady. Do you know who his wife was? She's passed away. Anne Bancroft, Mrs. Robinson.
Oh my God.
I didn't know that. Yes.
She was also a miracle worker. Well, I had, as any guy my generation had a crush on her forever. I'm gonna meet her. So he goes over and he's got his arm on me. He says, Annie, this is Mr. Wilson. She said, the Imagineering Mr. Wilson? She's very New York. I said, yes, ma'am. She said, let me tell you something. Put her hand on. She said, he never had a better day in his life than when he spent those afternoons with you boys over there at Imagineering. I said, well, ma'am, I said, we enjoyed having him. And to tell you the truth, the only reason I was ever nice to him was I hoped maybe someday I'd get to meet you. She grabbed me, pulled me down sitting next to her, gave me a kiss on the cheek. She says, anyway, all that to say, we said, we were brainstorming, okay, you go down to the steam room, you get on the service elevator. Well, what's the difference? Well, service elevator has a gate, so you can see as you go up every floor.
Yeah.
And you see where this and this and this and this and this. And you get to the top, and somebody said, it stops, the gate opens, and the elevator shakes, and it comes out of the shaft and goes down the hall. Well, we all screamed. And Mel happened to stand next to me, and he says, can we do that? And I said, well, I know a guy. He says, you know a guy? I said, he's the head engineer. His name is Jack. He figured out Space Mountain. I'll ask him. Boy, if we could do that now, we got something. I said, yeah. We're like, yeah. Next day I'm at lunch, and there's 4 engineers at a table for 4. And I insinuated myself, and a bunch of napkins, and stories later, and Mel Brooks said, so he's really in the building? I said, yeah. And they were kind of used to the fact, oh, James Cameron is here. Oh, you know, because they all came through. Pee Wee Herman is here today, so on. And you didn't always see those people unless you were working with them or happened to pass them in the hall, but a lot of them came through. So I told him this idea, rattles and shakes, and comes out of the shaft and goes down the hall. And Jack was about to bite into his pastrami sandwich. And the reason I give you pastrami as a detail is it was a Thursday. They had pastrami sandwiches on Thursday. It was unbelievably good pastrami. I almost got one because I always do, but I thought eating a pastrami sandwich and talking, I couldn't do both. And I had this thing about eating hot food hot, you know, and I knew if I didn't, I'd end up having my pastrami sandwich cold, blah, blah, blah. And I said, so it comes down the shaft and goes down the hall. And Jack goes, okay, then what happens? He said, okay, as if I'd asked them months ago and they'd already worked it out. I said, it goes down the hall and it sees stuff, you know, and we do that. And they're all like, yeah, we'll figure it out. Yeah, we can do that. Sure. Be an independent track. There'll be a track here that holds it, and there'll be a track on the floor. Maybe you don't want to show the track. And, oh, we could use the such and such. It had a name, and it was the system they used for
Get ready to go.
the Epcot, the dinosaurs and the
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
What?
Not the Omnimover.
not World of Motion. Anyway,
Yeah.
and it was an 1/8 inch copper wire in the cement, and a thing on the thing, and that was the track.
Yeah.
Guided through.
Right.
Like an
Well-
infrared kind of, not infrared though.
And then he said, how are you going to get him back down to the ground? I said, I didn't know I could get him out of the shaft. Dream a little. What do you want to do? And I said, well, tell you what I'd like to do. I said, they're going down the hall. I said, maybe they get to the end of the hall. This is the table. And I grabbed a salt shaker, and I keep this here for podcasts that I do where I tell the story. I said, I'd like to do this, or maybe a cable on it that swings out one side, comes back in, then maybe we go back and go down. He said, what would you like to do? I said, I'd like to do a Roadrunner. And one of the guys said, perfect, a delay drop. Remember Roadrunner and Coyote? Roadrunner is a bird. He flies off the cliff. He's fine. Coyote is a non-bird. He goes off the cliff. He waits a while, and then he falls.
Because he has to look down, look around, and realize where he is, and then he falls. Yes.
Boom. Jack says, I like it. How tall is this hotel of yours going to be? I said, I don't know. This is the new end. Maybe it could look a little taller. It's all suites, 150. I don't think it's going to be 6-8 stories. He goes, that's not scary. I said, 10 stories. He hit me, says, come on, theme park boy, dream. Well, our working title of the hotel was the Mel Brooks Hollywood Horror Hotel. And Mel would say horror slowly, or it's no longer a family ride. So I nicknamed it, and you can find it. You can Google this on the web and find this. I nicknamed it Hotel Mel, so we wouldn't slip on the word horror.
Right.
And I was just about to have jackets made that said, Hotel Mel. In fact, I've got a friend who's working on getting me some hotel keys with the plastic fob.
Oh yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah,
1950s.
yeah.
We're gonna do Hotel Mel keys just as a thing. And I said, okay, horror hotel. I said 13 stories. He said, that's the right answer. And then one of the guys says, wait a minute, how tall? Well, at Disney World, the height limit on anything is 200 feet.
Yeah.
You can build a 300-foot. 200 feet is 20 stories, if you think of 10 stories per thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But above 200 feet, you have to put some kind of a radar tower with a light for airplanes and so on and so
Oh,
on.
right.
So they said, tell you what, we'll build it as high as we can. We'll build it 199 feet. But we'll paint it to look 13. So next time you're in Florida, count. And the painting on the outside of the hotel is 13 stories, but it's a 19-story building.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Forced perspective.
Yeah. And so they're building Everest. And my former friend, Joe
I love
Rohde,
this story.
says to the construction guy, how tall is this? He said, it's 189 feet, about a foot shorter than your buddy McNair's hotel. So they go up there with some chicken wire and some plaster, and they add a foot and a half so that Everest is 6 inches taller than Tower of Terror. So one of these days, I'm going to climb up there with a weather vane. It says Hotel Mel on it. It's a foot tall.
A 7-inch weather vane, just stick it on top there, just in case. It's funny. So McNair, as we're starting to kind of wind down here, because this has been a great conversation, I feel like we could go for hours. Can you tell us about the new book? I know we have a new title for it. We have a title. Do we have an expected date? And what do we expect to find from the new book? A trombone played badly. I love
the cover. I love it.
The subtitle is Recapturing Your Creative Spirit, which is the title of my TED Talk. It's online. If you go to Tea with McNair, tea like the drink, TEA with McNair, you'll see a link to.
We'll have to link to that in our show notes, just so people can find
Absolutely.
it.
And recapturing your creative spirit is my point to say, look, we're all born with the creative spirit. All children, anthropologists in every culture they've gone to, even the fourth world, meaning non-technology, out in the bush, up the hill, the only way to get there is by foot or donkey. All children by age 3, are singing and dancing and making up stories, and their imagination is running wild.
Right.
They haven't had classes, art classes, drama classes, right? They just do it.
Right.
They're born with a natural creative spirit. It's the one thing that sets us apart from all of our life forms. Dogs are not creative. When your dog walks around in a circle before laying down on his favorite place, that dates way back, thousands of years, to when there was tall grass and they would walk around to push down the grass and then lay down. It's an instinct. It has nothing to do with creativity. There are some animals, some of the primates make tools, dolphins and so on. They've trained them 4 or 5 behaviors, and they've invented 6 or 7 on their own. That, the animal trainer's going to go, where'd that come from? So the whole point of my life is to say, you have a creative spirit. And when I was teaching brainstorming to Disney executives, Michael Eisner took the class at Imagineering, Disney University. He said, do you think you could teach this to some of the executives at the studio? I said, well, I don't know. He said, you don't think they're smart enough? I said, no, the opposite. It's an old saying in the education world, the hardest thing to teach somebody is that which they think they already know.
Yes.
There's nobody who thinks they know everything like the head of a corporate division. Disney has 23 of those.
Yeah.
They don't call them divisions. The business card says part of the magic of the Walt Disney Company. And I said, I've met most of those guys. They're unbelievably smart, but they don't know that they're creative, maybe. So he said, well, let's try it. So he sends a memo out. This is pre-email, of course. And he said, I want you all to take McNair's class. He's going to do it once a week at the studio, you and your 5 or 10 top people. And then if you want to, he can come in-house and do an all-day thing for you.
Mm-hmm.
Very first session, 3 of the top guys, including the guy who ran Walt Disney Productions, which means everything film, TV, video that the Disney company put out, he was in charge of. So like in terms of power and so on, the number 3 guy in the company. Good guy, smart guy, fun guy. He said, and they're talking to each other. They come over and say, we love your thing. We want to use your course. We're just talking, the 3 of us. We're not creative. I said, what does that even mean? And the one guy says, well, I can't even draw a straight line. I said, well, that's not a test for anything. Mm-hmm. Every art supply store in the world sells rulers and T-squares and triangles to artists because they can't draw a straight line. I'm an artist, and I have a few of those on hand just in case I need to draw a straight line.
Well, that rules.
Yeah.
Oh, David.
I've got another one. So the other guy said, well, I can't draw stick figures. I said, yes, you can, because you sat somewhere on a bus and played hangman and you had to draw a stick figure. Oh,
That's
yeah.
right. Mm-hmm.
And I thought, how do I help these vastly talented, intelligent guys understand their creative spirit? And I spent a year talking to everybody I knew, including the aforementioned Kirk brothers, Richard Vaughn, who invented Catastrophe Canyon, and so on. Bob Weiss, Chris Carradine, you name it.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad, who wasn't a bit artistic, but terribly creative. At his funeral, 5 people that spoke, 4 of them were not me. All of them, without connecting with each other, talked about my dad's creativity. Huh. At the reception afterwards, my friend said, I know your dad. I was at his house for barbecues. He made me sweep his pool. He wasn't artistic. I said, nobody used that word all day, and they didn't. But they all talked about his creativity as an educator, as a leader.
Mm.
And so I thought, okay, what are the benchmarks of a creative person? What is creative spirit? And I came up with, at the time, 6 habits of actively creative people. I distinguish between actively and inactively. In other words, people do it on purpose. I'm going to do this now, and that's going to be more creative than otherwise. And eventually I pared it down to 4. Short version is, I got a call from Michael Eisner's office. They kept getting calls for people to come and speak on creativity. They would start with him. So we don't really have somebody. He said, you're so good at doing project presentations. Can you speak to corporate groups? I said, I do presentations, I speak at conferences. He said, mostly pastors' conferences. He would talk on there. I said, Jesus. He goes, oh yeah, that works. And I mean, he knew I was a church-going person.
Right.
And so one time I told him, I invited him to my wedding. I had a practice marriage in the 80s. And I said, I'll save you a piece of wedding cake and a ham sandwich. I said, oh, ham sandwich, kosher. He said, I don't keep kosher. I said, oh, that's right. You're not I said, you are a Jew, but you're just kind of Jewish. And I heard him a different time say, I'm just kind of Jewish. And so, and I did bring him some wedding cake, but not a ham sandwich. Anyway, so he said, well, let me give this group your name. And it was the California Association of Police Training Officers, CAPTO, the people who run police academies and anti-terrorism schools. Completely the wrong group of people to talk to about creativity. But I had this new
That's awesome.
piece of information, and I thought, if I can convince them of their own creative spirit, we're on to something. I did. It worked like gangbusters. We gave everybody, we put on the table stacks of blank copy paper, cheap felt pens, cheap meaning 10 for $1, $1.25 tree.
Nice.
And he said, you're all used to writing tickets today. Here's how you're going to take notes. And they all did. I did 45 minutes, an hour and a half of Q&A. Then we repaired to the rooftop cafe. This is at the downtown hotel in Sacramento. And they're all coming to say, I do this and this and this. Am I creative? Am I creative? He says, absolutely you are. And I thought, if I can convince a group of, and this is what they call themselves, super cops, of their own creative spirit, we could do it for anybody.
Absolutely.
And I had my wife with me at the time, and she said, what do you think? I said, I think the creator of the universe kicked open a door today, and I knew this door existed. I just didn't know where it was, that I could step into. So I now realize that what it is that I do is help people recapture their creative spirit.
I love that.
You'll see when you watch the TED Talk, the story, the talk begins with a story that Walt told, and he would tell it in a few lines. A kid wanted to be in the circus. The only job available was trombone player. They didn't know till the opening day parade that he couldn't do it. When they asked him, why didn't you tell us? He said, I didn't know. I'd never tried it before. That's your creative spirit. That's curiosity.
That's fantastic.
Taking a risk. So the book is a chapter for each of those 4 habits, and in writing it, I came up with a 5th habit. And so there's a chapter for each of those, and little mini chapters along the way to kind of explain the details within this. So we're shooting for it to be out end of summer, early fall.
Oh, nice. So soon.
It's done. It's just too long.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah, I'm so excited to see that book. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. And of course, we've got a friend of ours who, her name is Emily, and you actually signed a book to her. I had you autographed a book to send to her. Our friend Emily Ryan is the biggest McNair fan. She loves your work. She loves Hatch. I actually messaged her while we were talking to you, and I'm like, we're talking to McNair for tomorrow's episode, and she actually said, "Oh my gosh, I'm fangirling." So you have fans. They love you.
What does Emily do?
She is actually starting a company, or she has started a company called Bluebird Gifting Company. And she is a premier deliverer of all kinds of gift baskets and things like that. Their own property. You call her up and say, "Hey, can you send this family some popcorn, or send this family a gift basket of plush or whatever?" She does that. A lot of times she'll do some other stuff too, like deliver, waters and you have to talk to her, but
she needs to come to the thing.
She's talked about that.
She does.
Come.
Yeah, she does need to come.
She definitely wants to come.
Well, if people keep watching me through any of my Facebook sites, the easiest one is Facebook Hatched by McNair Wilson. Very soon there will be an email list created that will help them get announcements about how to buy the advanced copies or the advanced sales of the book. What we're going to do is we're going to sell them in 2 book lots, because, as I said on the back of Hatch, don't loan this to somebody, you'll never get it back. And the number of people who've told me that they loaned to somebody and didn't get it back, including a pastor and who had somebody steal his copy off his desk at church.
Oh my God.
He told his staff, "Somebody stole my book. I've made arrangement. Whoever you are, you're going to hell." I've already
I bought Emily her own copy, so she didn't have to take mine.
So anyway, what we'll do is you can buy either 2 copies of the new book, or if you don't have Hatch, you can get the new book and Hatch together.
Nice.
When they come out for cheaper than the cost of.
Nice.
Now, is that the best way to find you or contact you, is through the Facebook group, or do you have an Instagram or email? Facebook's fine. Perfect then. Awesome.
Facebook / Hatched by McNair Wilson. And it's about all my books. I mean, I have seen McNair Wilson, but that's one of those things where you got to friend me. Right. And I'm just a little bit of a stickler. If I don't recognize it, I'll say, "Please tell me where we met." And you say, "Oh, I met you at," and then we'll be friends. But if we haven't met, use the other one so we don't have to go through the
well, Jen, I can't wait for you to meet me there one day, because he is just
I know. I would
he's
love
fantastic.
to meet him in person.
I'm 8 foot tall, and hair. This is just a wig I wear for podcasts.
That's nice. That's what I assumed. You look about 8 foot tall. So
it reminds me. You actually remind me of what Hall of Fame legend Rush Limbaugh used to say on the air. "I'm just a lovable little fuzzball." That's actually what I kind of think of. Just a harmless, lovable little fuzzball. So that's our McNair. So
I'll take it.
So thank you so much for this. This has been fantastic. So much. We're going to have you back on, of course. Hopefully not 2 years from now. I'll have to convince Jen to have you on before 2 years. So
you know his name.
And for your listeners who don't want to wait for the new book, meantime, if they contact me through Facebook, we can arrange to get you one of these signed and put your name on it. Or if you just want to get the book, Amazon has it all day long. So
that's
fantastic.
Perfect. Thank you, McNair. You've been fantastic.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Have a magical day.
And so that is our long conversation with McNair. We always love having him on, Jen, because we can have 2 episodes worth of conversation, because he just has so much.
But I could just keep listening for hours. His stories are just amazing.
So now I have never talked to him about Disneyland. I think next time he comes on, maybe we'll
just pick his brain
about Disneyland, and just he's met Walt. Really want to pick his brain about Eisner. I don't know how much he'll talk about Eisner, but Eisner's my guy. I want to hear some Eisner
I know
stuff.
you do love some.
I want to hear some Eisner stuff. So Jen, you're headed on the cruise today. Of course, you're like we said, Kyla. Make sure you follow her on Instagram at Disney Geek 27. Quasi producer Heather is going to be at Disneyland very soon. Follow her at the Moana Mom. Jen, and of course, Upon a Star, is it Upon a Star Katie, I believe, or is it Katie Upon a Star?
Yeah, she has a couple of because this is a Disney cruise, so she'll probably post it on her Disney one.
Yeah.
So because she does have she has a one for everything. So she has Katie's Disney Life and Upon a Star Katie.
Yeah, we'll do that. Upon a Star Katie and Katie's Disney Life, KITIE. So you can follow her for cruise stuff as well. And of course, Jenn, where can people follow you? Those random few people who are not following you yet, where can they follow you?
At Upon a Star Jenn on all the socials, and then Jenn_Novotny is my personal Instagram, as well as Threads, which I don't know how much I'll be posting on that, but I do have it. So
there we go. Yep. Follow me at the Magic on a Dollar. Now, I'm not going to be at Disney World or on a cruise or anything this summer, but of course I post the content all summer long. Anyway, follow me on Facebook at Magic on a Dollar and Disney on a Dollar as well. Follow Upon a Star Travel, because I'm sure that Meredith, is our social media Upon a Star junkie, she will be getting all of your content and making reels and making all kinds of fun stuff. And if you haven't been to the account lately, it is blowing up because there's been some reels that have gotten literally over 100,000 views. Like 2 or 3 in a row like that, not just one that just hit popularly and the next one gets 17, because you know how Instagram is. There are several that have been just gotten great numbers, and what she does is great work. And so good job on her on that. And of course, follow us at the MSE podcast on all the socials as well. So Jenn, I gotta be honest with you, I'm gonna kind of miss you. Because I talk to you and Kyla and a few other people every day, so I'm gonna kind of miss talking with you. I guess I'm gonna have to make new friends, which is kind of strange.
Oh, that's awkward.
I guess I could make that but next week we'll be talking with Emily and Jessica as they talk about Disneyland, so we'll be all together again once more, and then and then we'll figure out what happens the week after that. So anyway, so I am Dave, and for Jenn, have fun on your cruise. We'll talk to you soon, and don't forget to thank your Phoenicians.
Thank you for listening to the Main Street Electrical Podcast. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at the MSE Podcast, or visit our website at themsepodcast.com. Be sure to subscribe, and may all your wishes come true.